a necromancy spell in this giraffe porno magazine my daddy left in my crib.
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I am Hyle Russell.
And I'm Jeff Onan.
Oh, Jeff, I heard that you had a good football. Congratulations on the football.
It's an orgasmic year for football. If you're Jeff, that's true. I had a Jeffgasm yesterday. I also had one a week ago. I'm having Jeffgasms all season long. So, but, you know, that doesn't mean I can't take a little time to talk to you, Mr. Hyle, about, what are we talking about? Mario Kart?
Yeah, we're talking about Mario Kart Tour. We're talking about the Holiday Tour, where I just unlocked Bowser in a Santa suit, so I'm pretty excited about that. Never going to use him, but it's just nice to have him on my roster.
Yeah, so I don't care about that at all. Let's not talk about that, actually.
All right, well, I don't care about football. Your Manchester United and whatever you're excited about. Why don't we talk about Common Ground then, where we can both get excited about it? And I think the only thing that applies to these days is Sea of Thieves. So,
Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. So, Sea of Thieves, season 4 just wrapped up the other day. We're now in season 5, which seems really quick, you know, when you consider they started this whole season structure at the beginning of the year, roughly. So, that being said, you know, season 4 introduced quite a bit of stuff. Maybe not quite as much as season 3 did, but season 3 was really, you know, built around the Pirate's Life Disney crossover, and that came with 5 new tall tales, which we discussed for almost 4 hours on the last Sea of Thieves conversation we did. So we're going to be discussing the follow-up to that, season 4, which, you know, if you are not a Sea of Thieves player, if you listen to the conversation because you like all them rare games from the 90s, there is some stuff you might want to hear about what they implemented this season that ties into the greater DKU. And if you can tell from the key art, if you're listening to this on YouTube or SoundCloud, you'll know what I'm referring to. So stay tuned if you like them crocodile people. But if you're already converted to Sea of Thieves, then I don't need to sell you. I don't need to upsell you on any extra goodies. So you know what to expect. So just stay tuned. I did want to plug real quick a couple things. DK Vine, of course, is on Twitter. I tweet every day. I go tippity type and give my thoughts in those very limited characters. But that's fine because I don't have many deep thoughts. And right now, up through the end of the year, every Monday through Wednesday, we're having big giveaways. That's right, DK Vine is giving away prizes. Giving away stuff like the Rare Racers pins from Fangamer. Giving away stuff like a Donkey Kong 8-bit ornament from Hallmark. And some other surprises too, like the YouTube's Banjo-Kazooie figurines. So a lot of hot stuff I'm giving away. All you have to do is follow DK Vine and retweet the tweet where I say retweet this and follow us. So check that out, dkvine.com/Twitter. And since we're discussing Sea of Thieves, Jeff, why don't you talk to us about Golden Sands blog post, which is a really handy resource for keeping up on all the news with Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, so Golden Sands blog post is a blog that I created and I run with a friend of mine named Dre. And
Dre's my friend too, Jeff. You can't hog Dre.
No, sorry. Well, I have dibs. But yeah, like you said, it's a resource about Sea of Thieves. So if you want to be able to keep up with what's in the newest update, what are the challenges, how do I complete those challenges, you know, what the hell is a Twitch drop, stuff like that. You're gonna find it all in one place. You can find that medium.com/golden-sands-blog post. Also, you can just go to Twitter at Golden Sands blog. That's what that one is. So check it out. Sea of Thieves based stuff. It's mostly just kind of pretty clinical. It's not so DK Viney. It's more just like here's the information you need. It's a transaction.
You don't muck it up with the filthy jokes like I do.
Yeah, there's a lot less dick jokes on my blog, but don't worry, we're gonna make them in the podcast. So that's still yet to come.
Hey Jeff, take a look at this. Oh no, I'm joking. I wouldn't do that to you. No.
So season 4, Hyle. Season 4, the fourth of the seasons.
Yeah,
that
so
they've done.
Sea of Thieves. It was like, how are they going to follow? Because anything that came after season 3 would have felt anticlimactic. At least I thought so, because season 3 was the pirate's life. It was the big, E3 reveal of, hey, we made this deal with Disney. We're crossing over with mostly Pirates of the Caribbean, but some other Disney pirate stuff's going to be sneaking through the back door. And that's the right word, right? Sneaking. It was a big deal, and it was this big cinematic event in Sea of Thieves. It was Sea of Thieves season 3, but it kind of culminated some of the plots that they've been building up to, laid the groundwork for future stuff, but it was a big deal. So season 4, I thought, was going to be a lot more quiet, a lot smaller scale, where, it might have been more like Sea of Thieves Season 2, where, there was some quality of life improvements, some new things added, but it wasn't this huge thing. I was wrong. This felt like the biggest season since Season 3. I mean, out of all 4 seasons, I think this is right behind Season 3 out of, the impact it brought to the game and what it sort of enriched the gameplay with.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's really impressive. That they were able to have a substantial season so soon after season 3. That this stuff had also already kind of been in the works while they were doing that very substantial update with the Tall Tales and all that stuff. And it's obviously that was this watershed moment for the game. That was the biggest moment in the game's history, is this Pirates of the Caribbean story. So it's well, how do you come back from that? How do you get back to focus and business as usual? And okay, well, now we just have to make a regular Sea of Thieves update. After that emotional high, after that, how do you not come out of season 3 with a hangover? You know what I mean? It's a lot like when your team absolutely dismantles the Ohio State Buckeyes just demoralizes them. And it's yes, this is awesome. This is a great time, but we have to get to focus, because you can't just let that emotional high leave you hungover, because you got to go take care of business the next week in the Big Ten championship game, where you then can take the Iowa Hawkeyes to the woodshed to the tune of 42 points and just spank them up and down until they call you daddy. It's like that. Season 4 of Sea of Thieves is the 2021 Big Ten championship game of seasons. You know what I mean?
What Jeff said, yeah. I thought is Big Ten the Dr. Pepper that's not for women? I don't know what that is. No,
it's the Doctor Who that everyone likes, the favorite.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
Doctor Who.
He was a cutie. Yeah. Yeah, so it kind of reminded me, to speak in terms that I understand. In the 90s, Jeff, DC Comics crossed over with Marvel Comics, and they had this big crossover called DC versus Marvel, and then sometimes it was called Marvel versus DC. But they had this big crossover. All the characters met. It was actually in canon, and they introduced new characters, new elements that would, supposedly be able to be used by both DC and Marvel going forward. But then, after the crossover was over, they couldn't explicitly talk about in DC, like the time they met Spider-Man. So they would have to like get around it by saying like, oh, that remember when that weird silver dude on the surfboard was here? That was weird. It kind of felt like that, like how do you like we're not going to be like belaboring Jack Sparrow and like all that stuff's still in the game, obviously, but it's been kind of left in the past a little bit as far as the ongoing narrative goes. You can still access it. You can still play those tall tales, obviously, if you visit the Castaway on the beach of any outpost. But they're not going to keep going on about Davy Jones and all of that. You know,
that story is finished. That story's complete for now. But what it did was spark the other things that are going on in the game.
Yeah.
And so, like, everything that's still going on is a consequence of that adventure. But it's no longer about Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones. It's about these other things that are going on that are actually just native to the Sea of Thieves world. This is Rare's lore and Rare's story. Most notably around the Sirens, which are the evil or malicious variation of the merfolk. And now that they have been reawakened in the Sea of Thieves world, kind of reawakened around the time Davy Jones got there, now they're just part of the world, and as a result of that, it woke up a bunch of their structures. It woke up their siren shrines and siren treasuries that are these new locations under the sea all around the map, and a new kind of gameplay activity for us to participate in as pirates.
Yeah, somebody who, you know, cares about lore and ongoing narratives. You know, Sea of Thieves is not just a game that's packed with lore, not just its own self-contained lore, but also, you know, kind of touches upon almost every major Rare game ever made in some form or fashion. It is the omni Rare prequel, or in some cases sequel, as I say. So I'm like very fascinated, more so than the average gamer would be, with, you know, this living narrative that's ongoing, and you know it's quite a balancing act, having to, you know, have this major event that fundamentally impacts that narrative, but also kind of leaving it behind, but having the consequences speak for itself. I think Sea of Thieves has gotten quite good at having that ongoing narrative while making elements that each season brings in sort of an evergreen fixture of it. It's not as jarring as it was like when we had the Hungering Deep and you had this big event that was time limited and then it was gone forever. But then maybe Megalodons resurface, a month or two after that. It's gotten kind of seamless with how they do it in a way that you don't really notice it unless you really stop and think about it, which I appreciate. They've gotten very good at this, is what I'm saying. And
I think that the season model in some ways helps them to chart the path a little more coherently. Think ahead in terms of not just like having to pump out an update every month, but they kind of have these bigger drops, and so then they have a bit more foresight about like where's the story headed and how can we impact the game through that story. So yeah, it's been good with the season model as far as the story goes and how they've been able to kind of evolve the world and keep those moments evolving and telling the ongoing story, but they're not gone, they're not being removed, or you're not, you know, I mean, some of the stuff is like, for Halloween this year, you gotta kill a bunch of skeletons. It's like a little bit of story to that, and that's not really revisitable, but it doesn't really matter.
That stuff is so minor, though, as far as, you know, those time-limited events. They've gotten very smart about what's time-limited versus what is evergreen or can be revisited as this kind of tall tale that's almost out of time, that's like no longer part of the ongoing narrative, but you can kind of step back into the past a bit and experience it if you are a newer player, or if you're you're just nostalgic for it if you still want to do those commendations, Yeah, I'm a fan of it, is what I'm saying. Not to belabor it, but it does feel a lot more, I think, welcoming for newer players, where they can, jump back in and have all of those moments revisitable, while at the same time not, bogging down the story or continually spinning their wheels, which kind of felt like they were doing for a while there before the season structure, where it was just like they had all these balls in the air, and then they kept throwing up more balls, and nothing was kind of moving forward. There definitely feels like there's a forward progression now with the world and the narrative and the lore. So it's been a lot of fun. But what Season 4 added, the big feature of Season 4, as you said, were those Siren Shrines and Siren Treasuries. Which Season 3 sort of got us familiar with the Sunken Kingdom, this underwater Siren Kingdom, which we've, I fantasized about, thought about, even before we really knew what the Sirens were, or like as an official term. We would see this stuff in concept art. We were like, oh, when are we going to get, more merfolk lore? When are we going to get to visit these underwater kingdoms that we've heard whispers about? And Season 3 introduced it, and Season 4 introduces it into this kind of implementable way where it's just a part of day-to-day gameplay. And
it's not part of a story that you kind of maybe would only play through once and then never revisit. These are out in the world, and you can kind of come across them and interact with them all the time. So yeah, they've taken stuff that they built that foundation with the Tall Tale, and then they went and have sort of implemented it into the world itself outside of that Tall Tale.
Yeah, and there's these Siren Shrines and Siren Treasuries. They are marked on the map, on the Sea of Thieves map on the table. And they are fixed locations, but you can visit them anytime you want. There's nothing you have to activate. You don't have to wait for a cloud to go up. You don't have to, it's not like a fort where, hey, there's an active fort over there, let's go. Or there's an Ashen Winds battle, let's go fight Warden Chi. None of that. It's just, hey, do you want to go do a Siren Shrine? Do you want to go do a Siren Treasury? Let's go. And then so it's different too in that kind of context where it's completely player driven. If you want your crew to experience it at any time, you can just set out to do it, but there comes dangers with that as well.
Right. Yeah. So the main aspect of it that is unique and different is that you're parking your ship on the surface of the ocean, and then you dive down deep into the water to these underwater coral, structures. But that also means that you leave the ship unattended, and you kind of leave the ship vulnerable. And so that it kind of can change the way you play the game, because if you know that that's what you're doing, if you know you're going to leave your ship unattended, then maybe you don't stock up the ship so much. Yeah. You don't leave it with all your treasure on board. You kind of you wouldn't necessarily go build up an emissary flag, because the flag might get lost. And then that kind of presents a problem of, well, what happens if my ship sinks while I'm exploring down here, and then I get all this treasure from the Sunken Kingdom, but I don't have a ship to take it to, which is when they implemented a pretty smart solution with these merfolk statues that essentially act as like a storage locker for your treasure. And that has been very useful.
Yeah, you just stash them in this merfolk statue, and then a friendly merfolk on the surface will keep everything for you in its handy clamshell backpack. And so for example, if you store all the treasure you get, and it turns out another crew did come along and sink your ship, or they're waiting to ambush you, you can play it smart and be like, well, I'm not going to retrieve my treasure from the merfolk. I'm going to let that mer person keep it in their backpack, in their clamshell, and I'm going to wait until this skirmish with this crew is over, or we bring our ship back to get it. So it is more advantageous for the player down in the Sunken Kingdom versus anybody trying to mess about up topside. I haven't had any problem with this thus far. Like, I haven't experienced any other crews griefing me. But even if they did come along and sink my ship, it's not the end of the world so long as, I played it smart ahead of time.
Actually, now that you mention it, the only times I've had issues were in Insiders. People doing it to me in Insiders. But since the update came out to the live build population and playing it with you and others, I don't think I have had any issues with people trying to ambush you or just kind of sinking your ship. Maybe the first couple days of the update, when I think at that time, like, there were some players, they know everybody jumping in is going to be diving these things, so they kind of know that everyone is leaving themselves vulnerable, and so they're just going around like, oh, well, what if I just fire 100 shots at a ship that's just standing still? That's fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's fun to do. But no, yeah, it's been totally fine.
In fact,
you have to have a little awareness of.
I was just gonna say, in fact, yeah, today we streamed before we recorded this, and granted we're in season 5 now, but we still did a Siren Treasury, and in the middle of it, we were joined by a sloop we had allied with, and they were fighting the baddies down below with us, while Cameron and Andrew were up topside messing around, and we didn't have any problems. It was a fun time. So, in
fact, Andrew kind of defected and went off with their crew for a while. It was a whole thing, but sailed away without us. So, and that kind of brings up a good point. What we did today, we did a treasury, and you might ask yourself, like, well, yeah, the players have this freedom to do these treasuries or shrines anytime they want, but why would they want to? What motivates you to do it? And for us, it was the Coral Message in the Bottle, which is a new kind of message in a bottle you can find, basically telling you that if you go to a shrine or a treasury, a specific one, you'll be able to get a Breath of the Sea, which is essentially just a souped-up, more valuable version of a mermaid gem.
Yeah, it's like, the mermaid gems look like Gushers, the delectable American fruit snack filled with goo. And the Breath of the Sea is what happens when you squeeze that goo out. It's Gusher in liquid form.
This is like a potion bottle full of Gusher liquid. And, and that's really what more could you want? So there's kind of, there's commendations, obviously, which will encourage you. They say, go and do every shrine. Go and get a bunch of this coral treasure, get a bunch of those breaths of the seas. And so we want to do that. We want to check off our commendations because it's, that's a challenge that we can complete, something that we can go out and do. And then we'll get rewards for doing that, cosmetics that you unlock. So I think we probably have to explain what a shrine is and what a treasury is so that the people know.
Yeah.
People need to know.
Why don't you explain what shrines are, and I'll tackle treasuries.
All right. Cool. You got the easy one.
Nope.
So Siren shrines are there are 6 of them around the map, 2 of them in each of the main regions, and they're essentially a bespoke dungeon environment. Each one of them is a unique environment to explore. I like this aspect of it because it's really the kind of thing that they have never done in Sea of Thieves outside of a tall tale.
Yeah.
Because you have islands in these environments, but they're not like something you really explore with an objective and a mission. You know what I mean? But these Siren shrines essentially are. You're going through a dungeon. Each one of them is different than the others, and they all have their own little gimmicks. And that make it like that's what that one's gimmick is. So there's this one particular one that you have this spinning central mast in the middle of the room with a bunch of little platforms on it, and when you go up to these pulleys, you can rotate it. And so it's really this elaborate kind of parkour puzzle. of where do you rotate it so that you could jump across the platforms and keep going higher and higher up the dungeon until you get to the top, or until Hyle falls down. A lot of times. What?
I love platforming, but platforming from the first person perspective is a bit tricky. And sometimes I get a little slippy with my feet and I fall, and I'm not going to apologize for that. It's hard.
You almost did. You sound like you wanted to.
I know, and then I thought better of it. I looked inward and I said, have some goddamn self-esteem, Hyle. Like, have some pride. Don't apologize for this. Stay proud. Stand tall.
Yeah, well, at this point, we can't get mad because it's just like, we know if we're doing a parkour platforming, we know that Hyle's going to fall down, and we plan our time around that. But, so there's 6 of them.
I always call it out. I said, oh, I fell.
Yeah, that's your catchphrase. Is your famous catchphrase. Get that on shirts and everything. So you got like that one is like parkour, platforming. There's other ones that are kind of more puzzle oriented. You got to find levers, or you have to find statues that will maybe raise or lower the water levels, which is just the same puzzle we saw in some of those tall tales. Other ones are more just like about swimming through the depths and fighting sirens or sharks along the way. So yeah, each one of them is different, and that's just a cool thing. It also makes them. You might decide that they're not all that fun to repeat a million times, which you don't have to. You don't have to repeat them at all, really. You can do them all once and say, I'll never do a shrine again. But I think that now that we're all the way into season 5 and that this stuff has been out for a few months, I find myself I'm not fatigued by these. If we get a coral message in a bottle, I'm like, oh, cool. We could, I haven't done that shrine in a long time. So, let's give that a try, and we'll go get a Breath of the Sea from it. So, I mean, that is the thing, is like they are a particular dungeon, puzzle or environment, and that puzzle is not necessarily like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, it's not variable. If you know the answer of what to do, you know the answer of what to do.
Yeah.
So you just kind of do it, but if you give yourself time between them, you haven't done it in a couple months, then it's like, okay, maybe you forgot exactly what to do, so it's still fresh.
Well, and you don't encounter a coral message in a bottle, which is going to be the primary driving factor for revisiting these shrines after you complete them the first go-around and read all the journals and do everything. The reason you'll go back down there is that you find a coral message in a bottle out in the wild while you're doing something else, and there's a commendation to, I think, get 30 Breath of the Wild sold to one of the trading companies. Breath of the Wilds is what I was saying, and that's not this. That's another video game. That's Nintendo.
Hyle, you silly boy.
That's with the elfin boy with the ears, and yeah. Breath of the Sea. It's not a sequel to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Sea, you got to sell 30 of them to the trading companies. And so and the only time you will ever encounter those is if you get the coral message in a bottle. So, you want to take advantage of that, and then you'll revisit it, but it's going to be so spaced out that it doesn't feel like, we just did this. I hate my life. I hate this game.
It definitely doesn't feel like a
Game
grind.
Pass.
Some things feel to me like a grind, like when they made the Fort of the Damned and they said, do the Fort of the Damned 50 times. And obviously neither of us are anywhere close to having done that 50 times. But we'll get there someday. I mean, we usually do it a couple times every Halloween. So.
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes that when you look back at all of the the Bilge-Rat events, right? You and I have got them mostly cleared off, except Fort of the Damned, and we've even defeated the Shrouded Ghost, like the rarest thing in the game, but we still can't do 50 Forts of the Damned because it's just ridiculous.
Well, we would rather have fun than make it our mission to do that grind in like one quick succession. And so to me, it feels like it's not like, okay, grind this out and do a really lengthy and time-consuming thing. It just feels more like here is a lifetime goal over the next several years for you to work on. And that's how I approach all
I mean,
those big ones. But
if we streamed every day like the big streamers like Beardy McBearderson and the other one
Right.
with the beard,
other
then
bearders.
we would have done that years ago, but we don't. So
yeah, but like, so what I was saying is, I didn't feel like anything in the Sunken Kingdom felt like a grind. The doing 30 Breath of the Sea, it's a totally doable thing that we're gonna hit sometime over the next year, because whenever we do get one of those message in a bottle, we're kind of like, okay, well, let's get around to doing that before the session's over. We'll head to that treasury, or we'll head to that shrine. But the other thing they did with the shrines, and this is one thing I liked a lot. You can look at the shrines and say, well, I don't know, maybe it's not so endlessly fun to repeat a million times, and that's fine, because I don't think everything in Sea of Thieves has to be endlessly repeatable. Sometimes you can just have a one-time experience that is great, and that's what, for a lot of people, that's what the Tall Tales are. But they did something with these where they kind of strung a story through all the shrines and tied it all together. So it wasn't just like, okay, here's some dungeons you can do whenever you want to. Every one of them had hidden journals, 5 journals. So as you're doing it, you're also looking for this collectible, basically. Like, you're looking for a hidden thing. And there's 5 of them. But what's great is that every one of these journals is packed full of lore. You get to read some thoughts from an in-universe character like Marcia or Duke or Umbra, and those characters they are exploring the Sunken Kingdom and leaving their journals behind, and you're going through and you're learning the history of the Sirens through what these in-universe characters wrote down and discovered. And so it really fills in this backstory in a way that we got a taste of it in A Pirate's Life, and of like, who is the Sea Queen, the evil queen of the Sirens, and why did the Sirens go to sleep? Where have they been all this time? Why did they become evil? All of that stuff gets teased, and now we kind of get it answered through these journals, and then especially through the Legend of the Sunken Kingdom voyage, which is kind of your high-level reward. If you have found all the journals in the shrines, you unlock the opportunity to do this voyage, which the voyage is kind of just simply stringing together a few shrines in a row, where you go to 3 different shrines, and each one of them, they have locked up a key, and you need 3 keys to open this chest, and it gets you into this. I won't spoil anything about like the story itself, but in terms of what happens, like you get to go into a secret room of a dungeon that you otherwise, like, you could walk past this room, but you never got to go inside there before. But now you've got the key and you get to do this. And inside you have the one final journal that really ties together the whole story. And also,
it's called the Bible.
It's this New Testament that they came out with. It's I think it's even better than the first, honestly.
Answered everything.
Really ties
Changed
a bow
my
on
life.
things. But you get the lore. So if you're like me and Hyle, who really like the story and the lore and trying to answer these questions, like what happened in the past, how did the Sirens blah blah blah. That's huge. That's like crack for us. But then on top of it, it has what I consider one of my favorite, coolest moments in the game, which is just by getting in there and experiencing this final moment in this cursed little tomb. You unlock a curse. Curses are like a cosmetic thing that you can apply to your character, and this isn't the first curse that they've put out, but this is the first one that feels like the curse kind of exists in the story. It makes sense. It's like just the fact that you entered that sacred space, that dungeon, that tomb, you have been cursed by doing that. Like you reach the end of this journey, and now you've become cursed. And I think that it's the first time that a curse actually feels like it is meaning in the story, and not just like something you tick off a box and get a reward in your inventory.
I forget, did you don the curse? Did your pirate get cursed?
No. I think that maybe Gibbon did. I know that I put it on over Halloween for a little while because I mixed it with some ghostly makeup, and then the sunken sorrow, curse together, plus the outfit I was wearing. It all put together a very spooky vibe for Halloween. But no, my parrot's not permanently cursed with the curse.
So you took antibiotics for it. You got ointment, and it just cleared it right up.
I mean, I just ate earthworms until it went away, and it turned out that the right answer was like 704 earthworms. So if you get cursed, maybe try that.
It's good life hack there. Yeah.
Life hack.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciated that they kind of implemented, as you said, for the first time, Tall Tale-esque mechanics and gameplay just in the regular bits of the game. And I don't think that's necessarily a sustainable model for everything, but here and there, I think it's perfectly fine, and it was different. It felt almost like a continuation of the Tall Tales in Season 3. And so that's I think it really helped build up, especially the early parts of the season when we're still doing all of this. It really helped kind of build up and keep that momentum going from Season 3. So, I
think the journals being hidden and then this voyage you unlock, they're just kind of like an extra layer that they sprinkle onto these shrines. Like the main feature is they made the shrines, right? Like the shrines exist. That's the main thing. But then they went this extra mile to then string a bit of a voyage through that so that you have this kind of payoff to the story and a payoff for doing it. So that is like one of the big motivators for someone to actually sit down and do all these shrines is you get to go through that voyage and you get that curse, which is a very good reward for your time. But like they didn't have to do any of that. They could have just had the shrines and not had this extra layer of window dressing, this extra framing that they added onto it. So I'm really, really happy with that. Really impressed with that. Even though it's not like the kind of voyage you're ever going to do more than the one time.
But that's okay. Like you said, there can be things you only really do once, but those memories will stay with you. It will always be a time I will look back on and said, yeah, I did that. And that's enough for me. Like, I don't need to constantly relive something again and again and again, says the guy who runs DK Vine, the site mostly built up on games released 25 years ago. But that's not necessarily what I need. I can have one-time experiences. Wham, bam, thank you. I'm done. As the expression goes. But
that's how they say it.
Honestly, what I enjoyed more were the Siren treasuries. What I appreciate more are the Siren treasuries, which you wouldn't think would be the case because I'm the platforming guy. Give me dungeons, give me lore. I like all of that, but I really like the Siren treasuries, which we actually didn't get to experience right after the shrines because all of the Halloween / Festival of the Damned events kicked in, and we wanted to focus on all of that because the time limited. Plus, it was Halloween, so we wanted to get all spooky. So we didn't get to do that until after the pumpkin times. But the Siren Treasury is what they are. What I alluded to before, basically on-demand forts. Mini forts. Like you don't get the full whiz bang of a fort. You don't get the full payoff of the fort, but there's less risk. So if you're like, hey, I want some quality PvE time with my crew, player versus environment for you granddads out there. I want to fight some AI controlled baddies, and I want to get some treasure from it. And I don't want to, fight skellies on an island with a bounty or anything. I want a fort-like setting. Well, that's what Siren Treasuries are, where you fight basically the minions of the Sirens. You fight ocean crawlers. You fight coral skellies, which are great to see because they utilize coral skellies in the first Tall Tale way back when. And they kind of came back a little bit in the Pirate's Life 5-parter, but here we have coral skellies. They don't serve any skeleton lore; they serve the Sirens, and then we fight Sirens proper too in these treasuries where you're loaded up with the Trident of Dark Tides, which are these tridents that fire off water bubbles, lethal water bubbles that they introduced back in season 3.
It's a boomstick.
Boomstick, yeah.
It's a boomstick. Stick that go boom.
And what's really fun about these treasuries, these mini forts, is that not only do you fight like the land-based coral skellies and ocean crawlers, but then when a wave of sirens come in, it fills with water, and then you're fighting in an underwater plane. So it adds an extra dimension to the battle that you don't get from normal forts, which I have to admit I haven't got the handle on. I'm kind of terrible at fighting sirens, but I'm getting better. I noticed today, hey, I'm getting a little better at it. But it's really fun to go in there and just be like, hey, let's do a siren treasury. You weren't on the stream. We did this, but it was like I don't know, a couple streams ago. Cameron was just like, oh, we need to get some quick treasure. And we were just like, let's just do a siren treasury. Let's just do it. Maybe you were on that stream, but you were late or something, and we just decided to do a siren treasury, and it was just great. We got in, we got some pretty good coral stuff, coral treasures. You don't get anything like completely extravagant like you would from a fort vault, but it's still good, and it's a good way to kind of get started. Like if you're like, you don't want to be an emissary and dive down, but maybe if somebody stays with the ship, monitors the situation, you can maybe run that risk. I think we just did it with 2 people. So this might have been a day you were running late. You had like overslept or something. And so 2 of us went down into the treasury. Cameron stayed on the ship, and we got the treasure. We got in, we got out. It was fun. And I was like, hey, I like these siren treasuries, because I've grown to appreciate forts as I've gotten more comfortable with Sea of Thieves. Because there was a time where everybody who did forts, we castigated as a fort bro, the adrenaline-seeking junkies. And was like, I don't want any part of that. That seems like a lot of malarkey to me. I'm going to go over here and read a journal in-game. But as I've gotten more comfortable, I quite enjoy forts, especially when the Forts of Fortune started up. And I've done more of those than I ever thought I would. I've almost got like all 10 in the commendations done. But so it's kind of nice not to have to wait for a cloud, not having to wait for an opportunity. You just do it.
I think that what was really nice about the treasury is just it's the reliability to it and the predictability to it. Like, exactly where it is. It's always available. If I start a session and I want to do something quick and easy and kind of like I just want to jump in and go, I'd have to buy a voyage, put a voyage down, then chart the course and look at the map, because I don't know, because I don't get to choose where it's going to send me. And then maybe I want to fight these skeletons on a voyage, but then it's going to send me to an island, and I'm like, oh, but that island's kind of a hassle to fight skeletons, and maybe that's kind of annoying. But no, I want to do a treasury. I hop in the game, I can go right there and do it, and it's very straightforward and doable. That is the one that I did spend most of my time doing, because I think, one of the things is you pretty much play the game 1 day a week, right? On our stream every Sunday. Especially early on in the season, I played quite a bit more than that. I played 3 or 4 times a week, and a lot of times, just especially early in the season when you get to watch your renown tick up and you're leveling up, I just feel motivated to just kind of hop in the game for half-hour chunks of time, little bite-sized sessions, and I would just go solo straight to a treasury, and I got really good. With that Trident of Dark Tides, just kind of sniping the gunpowder skeletons. Which it is honestly a lot harder to do when you're with a group of people versus solo, because it's a little more chaotic. People running around, getting themselves blown up, and you have to revive them and stuff.
That's what happened today. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. Like, the chaos of it is fun, but it's kind of like, it's like we said this also this season. We did the Fort of the Damned. And a lot of times when we've done the Fort of the Damned, we have like 3 different crews there all working together. And that's fun. That chaos is fun, but it is chaotic, and it is sometimes more difficult And I think we had a session this season where we did a Fort of the Damned, and it was just us in our one crew, and we kind of were like, this is kind of refreshing to not have 8 or 12 people running around that you're accidentally killing your own people,
It was honestly easier. It actually went by quicker than when you weigh it down with all the chaos.
Yeah. So that's the same with the treasuries. I think they're fun with a large crew. But they're also really fun solo. And that's one thing too. Unlike a fort, it's different than a fort in the fact that the difficulty of it is balanced to your crew. So if you enter it as a sloop, you're gonna have a slightly easier overall number of enemies, strength of enemies, health of enemies, all of those factors. It's gonna be slightly easier than if you're in a galleon crew because they tweak it. They're like, okay, well you have 4 players and 4 players can handle a slightly more of a challenge. So yeah, I just spent a lot of time just kind of solo slooping it, going down to the treasury, get all the treasure, go sell it, call it a day. Especially when I was watching those commendations tick up where you it says sell 25 coral trinkets and sell 25 coral skulls and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, well I'll just hop in and do a few treasuries today and it'll be fun.
Yeah. And I've already gotten all those commendations. I'm surprised it was so low. Some of the commendations are they have such a high threshold and they really undersold it for the coral stuff. So I'm done with it.
Doing 50 Fort of the Damned is a big one, and then the other one is how many times you have to kill mutinous helmsman and the Duchess, and those. I don't think I'm finished with those yet because
or setting skellies on fire is another one I'm still working.
Yeah,
towards.
a thousand times. Yeah, that one's big.
But also, before we move on from the Sunken Kingdom aspect of the season, I do have to say I love the music. The music is fantastic in the entire Sunken Kingdom. A lot of Donkey Kong Country underwater music vibes from this. If I didn't know better, I would say, oh, did David Wise do this? Did Eveline Nova? I never know her married name. Shit.
Novakovic?
Novakovic, yeah. Did she do it? But no, it was done in-house by Current Rare. It's fantastic, though. And you've got the Siren Treasuries, which is the more bombastic, but then you've got the more mellow, sort of new agey kind of Donkey Kong style music in the shrines. And that's also
I really like the strings that they've really focused in on for the battle sequences. Like when you're fighting ocean crawlers, it has a very different auditory field than fighting skeletons, because in the treasuries you have a lot of string instruments and it just has a very different feel to it, and that's great. But yeah, like we said about the shrines, I think there was one in particular, the Shrine of Tribute, which has you swimming through these corridors of ruined temple that are also filled with coral and stuff, and just in the first person swimming through those environments, it's one of the moments that most feels like you're in a Donkey Kong game, like your dream version of a Donkey Kong game. It's a and it's very cool, very good. It feels very Kremlantis in that way because it's like temple ruins that are underwater.
And of course, the coral, the sort of bioluminescence of it all, it's just gorgeously rendered in the visual sense and then the auditory sense. And it's stellar all around. And it's a great change of pace from, the usual visuals of the game, being on the islands and in the jungles and forts and temples, and it just nice to have kind of the other sort of tropes in the genre of these underwater coral fortresses. It's a treat all around.
Yeah, really good, and it was also because Season 3 introduced the Sirens as enemies we can fight. It introduced the ocean crawlers as enemies that we can fight, and we encounter those out in the game. Like, ocean crawlers never fucking leave us alone.
No.
But like it was really nice with these in particular, to put those new enemies front and center, like especially in a treasury where it's like you can go and fight them on demand, and they get this big battle moment, which we obviously have had with skeletons for ages, like since the launch. You have the big skeleton battle moment, and now we have this way of getting that with the ocean crawlers on demand, instead of just the random ocean crawlers that annoy you on the islands.
It's still surreal that skellies are not just the only enemy class in the game anymore. Like,
It's
I
weird
get a little
how
sick.
normal that, like, it feels like that should be this such a weird, like, massive game changer, but it just became normal so fast.
I think it's because ocean crawlers are just too common, honestly. Like, I wish they would scale them back, the encounters in the wild, because it feels like they're always present, and just like, leave us alone.
Well, here's hoping they do something with the phantoms too, like in terms of an event or a battle that puts phantoms
for sure.
front and center.
The phantoms, the other enemies that were introduced in season 3, feel like they're the most undercooked, because we have nothing really building them up as far as like a greater narrative purpose. They're just there right now.
Yeah, that's got to be coming down the line, though. But yeah,
Here's hoping.
But it was cool. Get the ocean crawlers, their spotlight, the sirens, their spotlight, both in the story and also just in the gameplay, a regular new gameplay activity built around them.
Well, hey, season 4 also introduced a bevy of new cosmetics and costumes and weaponry. And I want to talk about, of course, the big one as far as DK Vine is concerned, as far as the Kongversation is concerned. That would be the Golden Nile collection. We got a Golden Nile ship set, we got Golden Nile costumes that your crew can wear, and we got weapons and a lantern. And okay, so like let me preface this by saying, like, I know none of this was created for this reason. It just so happens that they resemble Kremlings. It just, they're crocodile themed. It's an Egyptian themed set. Nile crocodile, right? Golden Nile.
And if you're new to the conversation and you're here for the Sea of Thieves stuff, the Kremlings are crocodile people from the Donkey Kong games.
Yes, thanks for the explanation there, Jeff. I don't want to leave anybody behind. So I'm multitasking right here. I'm speaking to two different crowds. I'm trying to bridge the divide. Worlds collide. DC versus Marvel. So I know none of this was conceived with the idea that, hey, we're going to reference the Kremlings from the Donkey Kong games that our studio made way back when. I realize that. I'm not a moron. All right? I think a lot of you think I'm an idiot, that I'm somehow a gullible dupe. I'm a mark.
Well, people say
no.
that people call you Hyle the Himbo.
Just because I'm beautiful doesn't mean I don't have brains, Jeff.
Yeah, you're a complete package.
Here's the thing. They weren't created with that intent, but the descriptions, the text write-ups for them, they had some fun with the notion. And I don't think this is something that can be denied. The intent is clear. The intent is right there. Anybody can see. Anybody can see this with their eyes and then process it in their brain and make this connection. And so I'm going to read you some of the descriptions here, Jeff. I'm not going to read you all of the descriptions. I'm going to read you some pertinent, the most pertinent ones. The four that really made my soul sing. All right? So basically, this is the description writer who, I'm not going to say who wrote these descriptions, but it rhymes with Tris Mulcock, right? That's a
Malcolm,
rhyme.
yeah.
That's a
Good
riddle.
rhyme.
That's a riddle that you're gonna have to figure out at home. I don't even think the great detective, the Batman, would be able to solve that riddle.
Not unless Spider-Man helped him out.
No, yeah, and then they can't even reference Spider-Man helping him out. It gets complicated. These were written in a way that was like, how can we reference the Kremlings without saying Kremlings? And so this is very deft writing here. So for the cannons, for the Golden Nile cannons, which are just golden crocodile heads, right? I should also point out that the figurehead is a golden crocodile, similar to what you would see on K. Rool's flagship, the Gangplank Galleon. But the cannons are, the description for them reads, crocodiles and pirate ships have a long entwined legacy. Celebrate it with these glorious cannons. And I already saw some people poo-pooing this, just diarrheaing all over this by saying, well, they're obviously referencing Peter Pan because the crocodile who ate Captain Hook ate his hand, right? No, that's not the intent. This is a reference to the Kremlings and Donkey Kong Country 2, so eat it. The lantern that you got says, with an exposed flame burning at its core, this ornate lantern is best handled with great care. Obviously a reference to Crocodile Core, the end of Donkey Kong Country 2, which housed the Kremling source. The blunderbuss is probably the most overt one. Staring into the gaping maw of this blunderbuss is even scarier than facing down a cruel crocodile. So obviously, K. Rool's signature weapon in DKC2, which of course he busted out in his star-making performance in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, is a blunderbuss, and they get right up the referencing K. Rool there without referencing him. The pistol was one that wasn't a reference per se, but really worked out for lore's sake. Was a pistol forged by unknown hands in a distant land. Who knows what its true history might be? Yeah, so it's like, could crocodile people from this place called Crocodile Isle have made this stuff? I mean, who knows? We're not saying it. Don't sue us. So, yeah, I appreciated all of the nods here. Obviously, as somebody who has daydreamed about Sea of Thieves somehow incorporating Kremlings and that aspect of Rare's legacy and the DKU that, is owned by Nintendo. This is probably as good as it's ever going to get, but I'm still glad they ticked off that box any way they could.
And, this isn't the first time that Sea of Thieves has referenced Donkey Kong, and it won't be the last, but
no. It
is cool. In this case, it's specifically being the Kremlings. It's not just kind of a surface level thing, but
plus it kind of putties a hole in the canon, the post Rare Donkey Kong canon, because you remember, Jeff, when K. Rool appeared in that one. It's not football, so you might not know this. There was a Mario baseball game on the Wii where K. Rool made an appearance. It was actually his last appearance until Super Smash Bros. Ultimate revived him. And K. Rool is wearing this funky Egyptian garb. And you're like, what the hell is K. Rool wearing? He's never worn this before. And he hasn't worn it since. But he was dressed like an Egyptian pharaoh of the olden times. And it was weird. I think they just redesigned him because they felt like his traditional long flowing cape wouldn't really work in the baseball game. We don't really know why Namco did it, but they did it. But it was like, well,
and it works because K. Rool has a history of changing his outfit from game to game.
Yeah,
so
but where does the Egyptian angle come in? Well, according to the Golden Nile cosmetics, according to the descriptions, this implies that the Kremlings, the Kremlantis Empire of antiquity, made its way all the way to the Nile River. And perhaps they made contact with and even influenced ancient Egyptian culture, and maybe the crocodile god, was it Sobek? Maybe he was even inspired by the Kremlings. Ooh. So I appreciate that. Even to this day, even in 2021, Rare is still providing me fodder for Donkey Kong lore and extended fanon that I can make hay with. So much obliged, Tris Mulcock.
Yes, all of that true. But also, I want to say about it, I want to say it's also just kind of a fun costume. And I think that this is about the time at this point where you and I, and I think more so you, because I never really had an issue, but you started to warm up more to the costumes. Because I think that when they started doing these costumes about a year ago or so, it felt like, I don't know, they could be seen as a little tacky. It could be, maybe you're like, I don't want to wear this because it makes me look exactly the same as another person and everyone is wearing the same thing. And that's not, that's not how I play the game. My character's outfit is very thought out and a part of their identity and all this stuff and how he looks. And so to put on a costume and pretend to be a fish man or whatever, it just feels a little wrong for my character. I think that
I'm laughing, but that is actually a costume. It's a fishman costume.
Yeah, the fishman, Beardy McFishman, and but yeah, I think that we kind of started to warm up to him a little bit because obviously we had the one session we all dressed as crocodiles. We all went out in our crocodile. This is our first session of the season.
Yeah,
went out and did some shrines.
It was you. Sharks. It was you. It was me. It was Cameron, and I believe Jeffrin Perez.
Probably, yeah. And we ended up having this big, dance party on the beach with another crew there, and we all dressed up, and it's in the key art, if you're looking at the key art on YouTube or SoundCloud or whatever, and, yeah, we just, everyone dressed as crocodiles, all doing our little dance emotes and having a good time. It's a fun outfit, but I think that kind of did ease the grease a little bit to get us more embracing some of the costumes, because then by the time Halloween rolled around, we're dressed as pumpkin men and stuff. So,
you were. I hadn't unlocked the pumpkin man costume yet.
Oh, not at Halloween. I think we after Halloween did a pumpkin themed kind of session.
Well, obviously, I was going to wear the costume that, in an implied sense, was a Kremling costume. Of course. That was going to be more up my alley than becoming a fish man or, looking like some asshole representing the Merchant Alliance. But what really made it for me at the end of that stream, which is referenced in the key art here, is when we were having this weird dance party on this outpost, another crew showed up. A brigantine even showed up. And brigantines, we have the most notorious luck with brigantines because they are genuinely dicks. Just the bastards of the sea
people who play on a brigantine are too big of an assholes to have 4 friends.
Right. So they're kind of like junior high bullies. Generally, not always. And in this case, it was quite hilarious. We were having we were ending the stream and we didn't care anymore. And we were having this weird dance party as 4 identical crocodile people on the beach. Our pets were also dancing with us. Pepito was there. And you could see they were looking at us through their spyglass because they had stuff to cash in. And they were like, oh no, there's another crew here. And they're like, wait a minute. They're a bunch of weirdos. There's this
4
kind of
crocodile men dancing.
Yeah, and I think you were doing your little creepy doggy dance where you kind of wiggle your butt. And
well, for a while, I think I was we posed it in a way where I was eating your ass. I think. And,
yeah, we like to pose in provocative positions because we're all about the erotica, and if we can make other crews feel things. If we can have them have stirrings, then we feel like we've done our sexy little jobs. And so they were staring at us for what felt like the longest time, and you don't know, like, are they just going to kill us because they're like, all right, whatever, or are they intrigued by what's happening and they want to let it play out? And in this case, they were intrigued and they decided that the reward was worth the risk of just seeing how this played out. So they started cashing stuff in while we were doing our little sexy dances and as crocodile people, our menagerie of animals around us. And eventually they just came over and watched and joined us. And it was a delightful time of merriment.
Yeah, we like to get silly. You know, we'll get silly with it from time to time. Silly boys. And that day it was a silly boy beach party.
Yeah, and I mean, it's why we can't grow an audience for Sea of Thieves, because most people who watch Sea of Thieves streams are in it for the hardcore, brutal action, and we're just wiggling our butts at other people. But, you know, it makes me happy, Jeff, and I'm not going to change my ways at this point. I would rather wiggle my ass in front of a stranger than stick a sword through them. That's just who I am. Yeah.
I do the doggy dance. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a little bit wrong with it.
Brig me, daddy.
So yeah, with the crocodile outfits, we got to do the siren stuff. But I think the other big thing that happened in this season by just consequence of the calendar and the time of year, Halloween vibes times, which basically in Sea of Thieves goes like all of October and into November. Like we're just really vibing out with the Halloween times. And
there was a point in September, probably like mid to late September, where I said, I really can't wait for the Festival of the Damned, which is the in-universe like equivalent to Halloween in the Sea of Thieves. They have the Festival of the Damned every like mid to late October into November, the harvest time, where they celebrate the ferryman and the cycle of rebirth, where you die and the ferryman lets you come back, and that's kind of like ties in with Samhain and Halloween and everything we associate it with in culture today. But I was like, because I was in a real big Halloween mood this year. I don't know what it was. Maybe the fact that there's no presidential election hanging over this Halloween. Maybe it was just because I was just in a mood for some spooky times, and I thought, God, I can't wait to see that first Spirit Halloween open its doors. I can't wait to I don't know, play some Oingo Boingo. Dead Man's Party. I can't wait for all the fun that comes with Halloween. And part of that I realized had become Sea of Thieves and this annual Festival of the Damned. It makes me think, when I was a kid and I was imagining the N64 Donkey Kong game before it was announced officially, before we knew it as Donkey Kong 64. There was a theory that it was going to be for the 64 disk drive, the 64DD, which of course never made its way outside of Japan. But reading about what the 64DD was capable of, and get this, Jeff, it had an internal clock. I mean, who would have thunk it? An internal clock in a video game system. But it was the coolest thing to me, because I read in a magazine that like one of the features of games on the 64DD is when it's Halloween time, there can be like jack-o'-lanterns on porches, and like it can be themed for the season because the game will know it's Halloween time. And I had this image of like the Congo jungle at Halloween time, and Donkey Kong having a pumpkin out on his treehouse front porch, and I was like, oh my God, that would be the coolest thing. And lo and behold, it took us until Sea of Thieves, but now we have this annual event where I have something to look forward to in the context of the DKU, like this Halloween celebration. And I realized, like, living this the past couple of years, how much it has become part of my own Halloween traditions, the Festival of the Damned. And I was like, wow, I'm really looking forward to it this year. But anyway, that's just a little insight into my brain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Halloween nerd, a huge Halloween fan. I'm also just huge into horror movies in general. So, as you know about me, so I watched a lot of horror movies this year, but especially in September and October. Um, and yeah, also having that in Sea of Thieves is big because I deck out my pirate in a more spooky outfit for the month, and we go out, and it seems like every week we are doing spooky vibes. And what's so good about it is that Sea of Thieves, over the course of the years, has developed such a wealth of different in-game like activities, things you can do in the game that qualify as spooky because like the main enemies are all undead skeletons. So like yeah, you're gonna get a lot of spooky stuff. We have ghost ships and forts and the Fort of the Damned, which are double undead because they're skeletons and they're ghosts. And all this stuff. So it's great that all month long we get into the mood. We deck out our ship with the spooky ship set, and there's a bunch of those that we've like accrued over the years. And I did want to say about cosmetics, this season in general, season 4, I think has had the best cosmetics ever in the game, as like collectively like what they added, because we obviously talked at length about the crocodile stuff, the Golden Nile stuff. But aside from that, you had all the coral sunken sorrow stuff that are rewards for doing the Sirens stuff, and then you had tons and tons of Halloween-y stuff. There was wicked web outfits and the jack-o'-lantern costume and jack-o'-lantern ship, which is like the pumpkin man stuff, and like you got like the candlelit capstan and the weird little witchy hexy banjo and stuff like that. And then in the Emporium they had the Crimson Crypt items, which are basically the first time they referenced vampires.
Yeah, these were amazing because my favorite I think archetype aesthetic when it comes to Halloween is like gothic horror, right? Your very traditional sort of universal and hammer horror kind of properties, where especially Dracula. And so anything that evokes that kind of classical horror of Count Dracula, and the Carpathian Mountains and his castle, and I love that shit. And so this was right. This was like a Castlevania kind of inspired ship set. I'm not even a Castlevania fan, but I love the look, and so this was just absolutely gorgeous. This is one of their best ships ever.
Yeah, and it feels almost like you're riding around on a floating cathedral almost, and and you've got these big vampire bat figurehead and cannons that look like almost look like carved gargoyle bats that are like your cannons and stuff. And the whole aesthetic is awesome, the weapons and stuff. But like I just said, in general, the whole season had such a good wealth of new cosmetics that were all really good. And that really helps you get in the mood for the season when you also can like dress up your outfit, dress up your ship, and match like the kind of feeling and vibe that you're going for with the spooky activities that we're doing for the Fury of the Damned event, which was this year's event going on during the Festival of the Damned.
Yeah, they always come up with a new name for it, the Blank of the Damned.
Yeah, it's the F word tradition. Every year, new F word. But they've never said the F word. I'm waiting for that one.
The fuck of the damned will be something we have to put on, I feel like, when we wiggle our asses in front of other crews.
Yeah, when I'm eating your ass on Golden Sands Beach. But yeah, so this one, the kind of the event was like you had to earn favor for doing any kind of spooky tasks, killing captains of skeletons and ghost ships and all this stuff like that. You earned enough favor, you'd unlock all the rewards, which were Wicked Web stuff, the Wicked Web, like blunderbuss and cannons and stuff, and all of that was fairly straightforward, simple, except, it took a while, like 2,000 favor takes, basically we had to play the whole month, you know what I mean? We basically had to focus on that for the whole month, which was fine because I think that between season 3 and season 4, with all the Siren stuff and with all the tall tales, it felt good to just go back to kind of normal Sea of Thievesing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fighting skeletons after kind of taking half a year off of not really fighting much skeletons, and it was good. But I guess it was all fairly straightforward, except for one unique little aspect that I found interesting: the Community Spirit Challenge, which was like a global challenge for the whole community. Had to smash 150 million skeletons. And if the global community did that, we unlocked these Wicked Web figureheads, these awesome, creepy, crawly spider figureheads that are very gorgeous and cool. But that was just a cool thing to kind of tune in every day and look at the website and see the number tick up and be like, oh, wow, people smashed 3 more million skeletons overnight or something.
And of course they were going to meet that goal. I don't think that was ever in question. And all you had to do was, I think, smash 10 skeletons personally to get the rewards.
Yeah, you had to smash 10 to contribute to the cause, and if you had done that, you were gonna cash in on whatever the rewards were. But yeah, that was fun. It was interesting. What I would like to see them do is more of a head-to-head kind of challenge between two things, sort of like a Splatfest and Splatoon, but like, they kind of did that once, I guess, with like whether you were, the hats. It was like, which company did you choose to represent? And by far, in a way, it's always going to be Gold Hoarders. Like, Merchant Alliance is never going to win that battle. But yeah, so I mean, stuff like that is cool. I just think it's a fun little twist to put on an otherwise very straightforward event. And the rewards were very cool and satisfying.
Yeah, and so Halloween fell on a Sunday this year, which is the day we do our streams usually. So we streamed on Halloween, and we decided we would do a server takeover on Halloween. It's kind of like a big event, right? And so we did that. We took over 2 galleons. When we say a server takeover, we don't take over the whole server. We take over at very least 2 galleons. Sometimes we get lucky and we take over 3. But
basically, what we mean by that is we just kind of game the system a little bit so that we can have our friends on the same server as us. We end up with 2 galleons usually, and then we can go off and do things that require another crew. There's a lot of things in the game that are like, well, steal something from another crew or do something with another crew in an alliance. And I think for this event, anything you did in an alliance was like worth double the favor.
Yeah, so it just makes sense sometimes to kind of game the system. And usually what we do is, we have a lot of friends on the West Coast, or, sometimes in Mountain Time, that time zone. So we're able to get them up early in their time zone, and then not a lot of people are logging in, because you're usually matched with people in your relative time zones. So you will get put in the same server, or it increases the chances you will. So we load into the server at the same time, and usually it doesn't take more than 20 to 30 minutes before 2 of our West Coast friends will say, hey, we're in the same server. We see each other on the Ferry of the Damned, and then we just have them invite us onto their respective ships, and then boom, we've got 2 galleons allied on the same server, and we can work together. And so, we do that every so often because, it's a lot of hassle. It's a lot of, juggling people's schedules, but it's worth it when we can manage to pull it off.
Yeah, and we did it on Halloween, so it was a fun one. I kind of don't remember, like, we did so many, Fury of the Damned streams that month that they all blend together. But I don't think that we did the Fort of the Damned that day when we had the takeover.
We were talking about doing it, but what ended up happening was, I think, a Fort of Fortune sprang up, and we decided, let's just do this. And we thought, because the great thing about the Festival of the Damned in Sea of Thieves is that it does go into November. And we you, Jeff, and me, Hyle, we are of the same mind when it comes to Halloween, because October 31st just isn't enough. We're not ready to say goodbye to Halloween on Halloween. We want it to continue into November, at least mid-November. And so we made the declaration, hey, we're still going to be in the mood next Sunday. Let's just do the Fort of the Damned on November 7th. And so that's what we did. It was kind of I built it as a Halloween annex edition of the stream, and we did the Fort of the Damned then.
Yeah, and I think a big piece of that for me, that mentality of I don't want Halloween to end. I'm still so in the mood for it, and I'm also like putting off that switch that flips and makes it Christmas, because when that switch does flip, and I internally and mentally am like, okay, now it's Christmas. When that happens, I'm into it. Like, I am going to be into Christmas. But I hold it off because I don't want to feel like it's Christmas in the first couple weeks of November. That's crazy. I personally think Christmas starts on Thanksgiving or Black Friday. That's like when you have... Like, Thanksgiving through to New Year's is like one big holiday season. But before Thanksgiving, like leading up to Thanksgiving, that's not Christmas.
It's like when the Doctor of Who fame has to regenerate, and he's that dreamboat David Tennant, and he's like, I don't want to become that big chin bastard Matt Smith who everybody wants to set on fire. I don't want that to be my life yet. I'm still in a David Tennant sort of mood. So I'm going to hold on for as long as I can until I regenerate. And that's the way I am. I agree. Like, I can get into the Christmas, holiday, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Bodhi Day season, whatever you celebrate. I can get into the winter holiday season, but you gotta give me a minute. I can't just go from loving the Frankensteins and the Wolfmans and then be like, oh yeah, Santa. No, fuck that. Like, I have to have sort of a decompression period where you let me say goodbye to my monster friends. And so, that's what the Festival of the Damned kind of provides us. It provides us that de-escalation, that sort of bridge into the winter holidays.
Yeah, and so definitely I like that, and especially because in past years, I think Sea of Thieves almost conditioned me to think that way, because oftentimes they didn't even start their Festival of the Damned until the end of October. Like, sometimes they started like on October 30th or 31st.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, the Halloween season starts now.
And it's great because I also just love it because they deck out the taverns with the pumpkins. All the little trading companies, they have like jack-o'-lanterns in front of... So it's just like...
The music in the tavern is all like...
Theremin.
Theremin and spooky. Yeah, it's great.
So it's just like my childhood fantasy for what Donkey Kong 64 would be. Except without having to play Donkey Kong 64. So win-win.
Yeah, well, then, so Sea of Thieves, I think they go hard on Halloween, and they go hard on Christmas with the Festival of Giving. And then in the middle, they always have this kind of a weak fart of a Thanksgiving bit, and this one might be the weakest, fartiest they've done.
I find it weird. I find it almost a relic of Rare of the olden days, and I'll explain why. Because Rare of the olden days tried to hide that they were fucking British, that they were so fucking British, and they would try to Americanize their output. Be like, hey, what's up, dudes? We are Americans, and we speak your jive lingo. They don't hide the fact that they're British anymore. They put the U's after the O's. And they use weird vernacular that, like, I don't understand, but I appreciate that it's there because that's who they are. But here they throw in this kind of Sea of Thieves equivalent Thanksgiving, like U.S. Thanksgiving, and I'm just like, who are you fooling, Rare? Like, well, who is this for? Is it for me? I don't need this.
Yeah, well, and this year, so the Feast of, they call it the Feast of Bounty, but I think that the overall time of year that event is in the lore. It's called the Festival of Plenty.
Festival of
And
Plenty, yeah.
That one really feels like they're grabbing at straws, because you've got the Festival of the Damned is big, and the Festival of Giving is big, and people care about those. But then you've got the ones like the Festival of Plenty and the Lunar Festival, and those ones are always, people are just like, I don't, okay, yeah, those aren't real. Those don't matter to me. But it's usually fine. I'm not mad about it. It's just, it's just a little thing. But then this year, I thought it was probably one of my least favorite little events they ever did.
Okay, so I don't like to be negative, right? I don't like to come in here and say that wasn't a good bit, and I'm wagging my finger at you. You should feel shame, developers, because they provided me so many hours, so many days, so many weeks of enjoyment from this game, that I can handle a wet fart every now and then. I can handle like an off event, and I'm like, all right, well, that didn't really work for me, but I understand. They can't all be winners in a living game. This is the first event where I felt like it was insulting to my pirate and to my ethos, and it was just wrong-footed in every measure. It sucked. I am not afraid to say no.
Yeah, this one is the first time they actually require you in Sea of Thieves to eat meat. This is the first they've ever done that. And Hyle is very famously a vegetarian. I also famously a vegetarian, or vegetarian, whatever you are. You little VG boy.
Vegetarian trending towards vegan. I have to.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, I famously only eat things that I kill.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the Coca-Cola you're drinking right now, you slaughtered its whole family.
Well, yeah, Coca-Cola is just slang term for rat blood. But anyway, the thing, so even though I do eat meats, all of the meats, I go to Arby's where they have the meats, and I go and I eat them there. I didn't like this event because, one, like, even if I felt secondhand insulted that my vegetarian friends are being told they have to eat meat in the game, which it doesn't. I mean, this is going to sound so dumb. Everyone's going to be at home saying, what's the problem? It's digital meat. It's not real. And they're right. And we did do it. Like, it's not a big deal. But it also just wasn't fun. Like, even if I didn't care, like, there really wasn't anything about it that was fun. And it just was kind of a dud, really, all around.
Oh, so like, my pirate, is not he's not a digital avatar of myself, but he is, in my understanding, he is my ancestor. He is my pirate ancestor, Cousin Russell, right? And so in the story I built up for this dude, like, he is the very first vegetarian in my family, and I was apparently inspired by my famous pirate great granddaddy, or whatever he is. So yeah, it was like, now my pirate now Lorena, the leader of the Build Rats, is saying my pirate has to eat meat to get these time-limited, was it like a tattoo and a scar and makeup and a title, right? So it wasn't even great rewards, really, but the fact is, we had to do it. You had to eat a voluminous amount of meat, and you had to cook it, so it was like, how many pieces of meat was it?
I think it was something, like 7. What was it, like
75? Yeah.
And every piece of meat in the game counts for 2 bites. So you really only had to like kill 37 and a half animals. But then for every member of the crew had to do that, and you had to cook all of them. So it was just really tedious and time consuming, and not a fun activity. Like, we're constantly just fishing and cooking. Which I like fishing, but not for volume. You know what I mean? Not for just the grind of trying to get 75 fish each. Times 4 crew members. That's a lot of fucking fish.
You're just catching splash tails.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no really strategy to it. There's not really any, like, and I think, I get it. It's hard if your goal is, we need to make an event that is themed around Thanksgiving. And you have to kind of brainstorm, and you're like, well, what do you do on Thanksgiving? There's not much to work with there. Only thing that happens on
you argue with your family, and then you avoid
you
them.
Stuff yourself, and you have a lot of food. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's easy to think of how a Halloween event can be fun and interesting. And even with around Christmas, they do stuff with, like, giving presents, like, give away your treasure to people. And, over Grog Manet, the like, New Year's kind of celebration, it's like, we're gonna have explosions and stuff, and big explosive stuff, like, but, like, if you gotta come up with something for Thanksgiving, that's tough. I don't know how you make that an interesting activity that you can simulate in a video game. Because there is no activity to Thanksgiving. You just eat a meal.
I mean, my favorite Thanksgiving memories were playing the new Donkey Kong game around Thanksgiving time, because that's always when they would release. They would always release around my birthday, which would always be around U.S. Thanksgiving. So Rare could have just developed a new Donkey Kong game and put it in Sea of Thieves. They didn't do that. That's fine. I'm not angry. Do I look upset? No. But, instead they made me eat 37 and a half animals, and my pirate didn't like that. Also, what made this even worse is if this was over like a 2 or 3 week period, that would have been, doable, but they gave you 6 days. Not even a full week to do this event. So if you play once a week, if you play one big session once a week, you had to do it all in one go. Which made it extra tedious, which made it extra stressful, and it was just a bad way to end season 4. And we are completionists, or at least I know I'm more of a completionist than you are, Jeff. But
I don't even watch the Twitch drops anymore.
But so I realize like this doesn't apply universally to everybody. There's the plight of the Feast of Bounty, but
well. I would say that at worst, the Feast of Bounty is a huge hassle that also feels gross because your pirate is killing and eating large swaths of animals. That's at worst. At best, you can just ignore it if you don't care. So at its absolute best, it's nothing.
Yeah. And
more likely than that, it's just an annoying, like, not so fun activity that was also really badly balanced. And, I just hope... I feel like we maybe even said this on the last episode with the season 3. Like, they're firing on all cylinders almost. Everything around the game is doing so well almost. And then you have this kind of event stuff that they do that are really hit and miss. And even the hits are just kind of like, all right, Like, I feel like they could do a lot more with the events stuff. And I think that maybe they will in the future. But, this one was a strikeout. This one was just kind of a miss. You'll have that.
I've had some bad events, like bad experiences with some events, like the mermaid gems, where you had a limited time to turn in so many mermaid gems, and stuff like that, where or like when I had to get my ruby eye patch, for whatever it was, you had to do some sort of grind. But yeah, the ruby eye patch, you had to do something excessive, and I did it. I got through it, but this is the first one where I actively hated every second of it. And I mean, we made the best of it. We had a good time together, and ultimately, the whole session ended with me vomiting all the meats. Like I purged myself. I got super drunk, and we just all started vomiting on each other. And then I took a bucket of vomit and I dumped it on Lorena's head as payback for making me eat the meat. So, we still had fun with it, as we always do, as you can always do in Sea of Thieves, is you can kind of put your own spin on it, even if the game is forcing you through hoops you wouldn't otherwise go through. They sent out a survey at the end of the season, like, hey, like, I guess the people who maybe are insiders or who have played the game since the technical alpha or otherwise, on their radar, on their mailing list, and they're like, hey, what do you think of season 4? And I was like, "Ooh boy, here's my chance." So I love when a studio sends me a survey because I feel like, yes, my voice will be heard. And I put a lot of thought and put a lot of time into crafting my responses. So I made sure to tell them.
I write in there just that they should put K. Rool in Smash. I do that on every survey, and so far it's working out for me.
I was gonna say you're batting 1,000 there. That's a football term, right?
Yeah, football.
Yeah. I just told them, hey, next time add some vegan options, and like I'll cook a pineapple.
I don't think you have to do an event for Thanksgiving. You just don't. You
really don't. Like,
because forcing people to fish and cook is not a fun activity. It's just kind of a bit of a time waster.
They could add a concertina that looks like one of those big cranberry logs in the can.
Oh, true.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah, cosmetics wise, yeah, go nuts.
Yeah.
Just don't make me eat 75 fish. But
yeah, I ate it was like 32 fish, and I accidentally ate like 2 bites of pork. I didn't mean to bite the pork. I was moving it out of a barrel, and it accidentally went to my mouth, and I was like, oh. But yeah, it's fine.
Pork apparently tastes the most like a human.
That's what.
Because I ate your ass out earlier in the season, I know exactly what a human tastes like. So it does kind of match up.
Yeah, I believe they made a joke about that in the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
That's the worst part in any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I
thought you were going to say that's the worst part out of eating somebody's ass is when it references Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, every time
too.
I just remember the cannibal scene on Pirates of the Caribbean 2. But you know what? Feast of Bounty aside, this was a really successful, good season. Especially impressive to have this be what follows up the monumentally, impactful season 3. The fact that they even had anything left in the chamber for season 4 is impressive. But it's like you had the fun new activities, you got to celebrate Halloween, and then on top of that, it was just probably the best collection of new cosmetics ever. Just a really great time in Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, I don't really want to end the podcast on that dour note. I mean, the last 6 days of the season were underwhelming. It wasn't I think there were a couple days after. Like they couldn't even take it to the end of the season. That was the frustrating part. Like they arbitrarily cut it off with a couple days left. But yeah, besides the Feast of Bounty, everything was stellar. It was probably pound for pound the best Sea of Thieves season yet. I'm not counting the obviously the tall tale content in season 3, which put it on another level. I'm just saying as far as like what it added to the game and the diversity of it all, I think this is probably the most well-rounded season with the most long-lasting repercussions going forward. And it's just amazing to me, like, how we keep saying this every time we do a Sea of Thieves podcast for the Kongversation, but it just amazes me how much is in the game for a game that was kind of a joke amongst a certain set of gamers when it launched for lacking content. You look at it now and you barely even remember that discussion. Nobody's making those No Man's Sea jokes anymore because you've got too much to do, and you've got you can do stuff under the ocean, you can do stuff over the ocean. Just a lot, Jeff. And and reference Kremlings, and this was probably my favorite season so far. And I'm sorry about ending it talking about eating ass and vomiting. That wasn't my intention.
There's nothing wrong with eating ass, all right? Let's just end it on that. The audience can make their own judgment whether what's right for them in the bedroom. It's just stay clean, keep things tidy, but do what you love. Do what you consensually are about. Have fun with it.
Oh, Big 10 is what you call your penis.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.